Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Chris Ensing. Meg is away tonight. Trucks blocked at an LCBO outlet as the strike continues this week. Windsor, once again, has Canada's highest unemployment rate. We look at why this city can't connect people looking for work with jobs. And it's being called a transformative investment, $100 million to buy new buses and fix the Transit Windsor garage. Striking LCBO workers in Tecumseh spent part of the day blocking trucks from supplying an LCBO outlet. All this was unfolding as union leadership was in town to show their support for the workers on the line here. Jacob Barker with more.
Workers from numerous unions joined LCBO workers today in a show of solidarity.
For these workers to have to work 10 years or more to get a full-time job, a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with in healthcare. So we're just out here to support them.
Even though LCBO workers are on strike.
Following this week's burger flipping advertisement from Doug Ford showing people where to get their booze while the strike carried on.
Solidarity!
The union president gave no signs that negotiations were going to resume.
We're happy to go back anytime the mediator says there's room for meaningful discussion on those key issues of how to grow and expand the LCBO and how to protect the jobs while doing so.
While this rally carried on in front of the LCBO outlet on Howard Road in Windsor, another action was taking place just off Manning Road in Tecumseh. Their workers were blocking access to a truck they say was there to supply the store.
They have a truck that has over 27 skids sitting on the bed. He came yesterday. There was no issues. Today he was blocking off the traffic at Sobeys. We had our members there. They're walking the line. They're not allowing the truck to enter.
Okay, and why aren't they allowing it to enter?
Because one, they don't even have workers in that store. There's no safety compliances that are happening that have been verified. And we're saying that is our work and we want the truck to go back.
While we were on site, another one showed up. The local union says this isn't the first one they've stopped.
In the last 3 days,
Yes.
we have actually turned 3 trucks around, which is phenomenal with the worker power we have.
They say they've also tried stopping some from going into stores to work.
So this morning at here in line, we actually made sure that the managers understood that they weren't going to enter that store. There was over 17 managers that were trying to get in the store to do our work.
CBC has reached out to the LCBO and the Premier's office to verify some of these claims. Nobody immediately responded. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The Windsor Jewish Federation is speaking out against the agreement made between the University of Windsor and the pro-Palestinian encampment. Yesterday, the university and encampment organizers announced that they had reached a deal to end the encampment that's been happening since mid-May. Encampment organizers call the deal the most far-reaching agreement to come from a Canadian post-secondary institution. The deal states that UWindsor will boycott institutional partnerships with Israeli universities for the time being, disclose direct and indirect investments, and support students impacted by the crisis in Gaza. But the Windsor Jewish Federation says all this was done without input from stakeholders, including Jewish students and the Federation. Its Federation president saying today, quote, "I am shocked and concerned about these agreements. Making such agreements further emboldens lawlessness on campus and will only serve to further marginalize Jewish students and discourage them from attending the University of Windsor." The CBC News has reached out to the University of Windsor for a comment on this statement, but we have not yet received a response. As the community of Harrow grapples with the tragic loss of the Walsh family, parents are struggling with how to explain what happened to their own children. On June 20th, Carly and her children, Madison and Hunter, were found dead in their home. All 3 shot and killed by the family's father, Stephen Walsh, in a murder-suicide. Now, tomorrow night, a Parenting Through Grief seminar is available at Harrow United Church. Reverend Darrell Woods has been fielding several questions as he helps the tight-knit community towards peace. He spoke with Windsor Morning host Amy Dodge this morning.
There isn't anywhere where you can go where there hasn't been a conversation. People trying to make sense of what's not possible to make sense of. People hurting. In a small community, everybody is within 1 or 2 degrees of knowing someone who was affected directly by the tragedy. Healing is a long process. One of the things that I think is important as a parent is to feel like you have good information to offer your kids, and you have a way of being with kids when they're facing grief, possibly for the first time. We can signal to our kids by our own response, our own willingness to talk about hard things, that even though hard things happen in the world, there's still good in the world.
Windsor's unemployment level hit 9.1% last month. It's the highest in the country once again. Those involved in the workforce industry say that there are jobs here, but they are in fields that the unemployed people don't have the skills for. Dale Molnar has more.
Pakenham Sedek is a Canadian citizen and has worked in her field in Canada, but has spent much of her career in human resources and office administration in Egypt. She and her husband, who is Canadian-born, went to Egypt in 2008 and returned in 2022, but Pakenham has been looking for work in her field for a year and a half with no luck. She feels employers want to see more Canadian work experience in her field on her resume.
When I came, I had so many hopes. Like, I was full of hopes that with my experience, because I'm very well experienced in the HR field, I thought I would have many opportunities.
But she keeps getting rejection letters. Tashlyn Teskey from Workforce Windsor Essex says Pakenham is one of about 1,000 people coming to Windsor almost every month from somewhere else to work here, and their skill set doesn't necessarily match what's available.
And so we have a strong need always for manufacturing. Healthcare is growing as well. And summer months, we always see a peak in tourism and hospitality and construction as well. But right now we have about 1,400 people looking for work. But we saw over 6,000 jobs posted in June alone.
Sedek confirms there are a lot of people looking.
I usually go to job fairs, and I have seen the lineups, like long lineups.
This is a German premium brand door panel. This is for a Mercedes SUV.
While there's jobs in manufacturing, the tool and mold industry is seeing layoffs. There's uncertainty over the lagging sales in electric vehicles, and that's resulting in automakers delaying production of the vehicles. And mold makers don't get paid unless those go into production. So even though they've delivered expensive molds to the automakers, they are waiting up to 2 years to get paid. It's one of the pressures that's causing layoffs in that industry.
Just anecdotally, several firms have just been right-sizing their companies, and while they're waiting for the product mix to launch. So I don't have a true number for you, but there's some right-sizing that's happening across our industry in Windsor and in GTA.
Lamb says they also have to contend with their customers sourcing molds from low-cost countries like China.
And again, but there's so many other factors that determine how that auto sector will go. I mean, again, consumer sentiment, interest rates, the threat of EVs from China.
Lamb says for now they are working to improve efficiencies and modernize in order to keep going. Sedek says while things are tough, she continues to persist.
But there are jobs, like, just try us, just try me.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
And as we look at today's unemployment rate here in Windsor, back in '92, it was a much different story. Take a look at today's Rose City Rewind.
At times, it looks like a family outing at the employment center, but it's no picnic. For many, looking for work is an exercise in despair.
There's nothing. You almost got to listen for whispers or rumors, and you chase after them. I've driven from here to London, Sarnia, Amherstburg, all over. And I can't find nothing.
The latest round of plant closing announcements make matters worse. At Champion Sparkplug, nearly 200 jobs gone. At Paragon Tool, another 100. Now at the job boards, there are few well-paying positions.
A lot of this stuff is like $6 an hour, and when you have children or something, $6 an hour doesn't pay anything.
I don't know what to do.
Henry Terfonda is a laid-off tool and die maker.
I come here every other day. There's really nothing on the board. Like this lady said, there's $5, $6 an hour jobs. That's not even enough to fill the crack between your teeth nowadays.
The latest local survey is not encouraging. A group studying employment needs says 1 in 5 household leaders is out of work. That's 20%.
Stats Canada numbers do not include the people who have given up.
Back to today's news. Transit Windsor is set to buy new buses, fix a decades-old garage, and update the bus stops. It's part of a newly announced $118 million investment from all levels of government.
And this is really an example of teamwork. You have the federal government partnering with the Ontario government, partnering with the City of Windsor, with the Mayor and Council. It's a $118 million historic, transformative investment to modernize Transit Windsor.
Politicians say it's one of the largest cash injections the service has seen. The money covering 10 different projects, most of it will be spent on new buses. It will likely take more than a year for those vehicles to arrive. The city is going to buy 60 new buses. About half will be diesel buses.
Cost is a factor, but remember, getting 40 people out of their cars and into a bus in and of itself is a step in the right direction in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, et cetera. So the clean diesel bus is still a very vital part of transit systems across Canada, and we obviously have to consider that as part of the overall mix. We have to be respectful of taxpayers' money as well.
Got to be respectful of that sunshine today. It was a day to wear the sunscreen, to stick inside or be sticky outside. We will have a look at the full forecast when Colette Kennedy joins us next. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, we had some stuff this week that we've already dealt with,
Yes,
but
we
beautiful today. Yeah, some stuff.
Yeah, I like to think of it like that too. Yeah, you're right. So we've had a few different things we've needed to get through between the heat and then the remnants of hurricane with Beryl, and now we get a little bit of a breather. It doesn't mean there won't be any bits of weather to talk about. There is, and I'm going to go through that with you. But in general, we're in a better pattern. Now, one of the things that kind of is the steering current or drives some of these systems our way is the jet stream, and we have had that tracks. It's this trough that essentially picked up those remnants of the tropical system and then pulled it our way. We're still seeing kind of that general pattern, but we know it's moved on over towards Atlantic Canada, so a drier pattern that has been pushing in our direction. And what happens as we go into Friday, even more heat begins to build. That track is still nearby, and so there is some energy that's kind of brewing. I'll show you on the radar in a moment that will likely bring a few showers, remnants of a couple thunderstorms, will bring that energy towards us tomorrow for kind of the first part of the day. Close by, some of this may stick kind of on the Michigan side of things, but I'll show you that. And then as we go into the weekend, we get kind of a break on Saturday, everything staying sort of to the south of us. It'll start to pick up and begin to bring some energy back towards us as we get towards the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week. So our current temperature is looking like this. There was some cooler air that kind of filtered in. It's 22 in Sarnia, Goderich, because of that breeze coming in. We got more of a northerly flow, slightly drier air. I mean, we're still talking about some humidex values in the low 30s, but generally pretty comfortable, and especially if you're feeling a little bit of that breeze. So that's why the satellite imagery, positive looking here. We are going to have some clear skies tonight. It's going to allow those temperatures to dip down, in some cases a little cooler than we've seen in a little while. This is some of that energy that I wanted to mention, though, back towards Indiana, and that's what I'm seeing kind of the remnants of, or sort of what's left of that. Not so much tonight, but in the overnight towards tomorrow morning is when we see that. And this is 8 a.m. where I've stopped it. We get some of the cloud cover moving in. Some of these showers, or again, a few little downpours in here, may just sort of track right on by to bring in a few spots with some wet conditions. Should be all out of here by 1 o'clock, just after the lunch hour, and then we get into that nice pattern where we're going to continue to see quite a bit of sunshine as we go through Saturday. There are some of the cooler overnight temperatures: Chatham, Kent, Sarnia, London. Not so cool. I think we'll dip below that 20, though, for Windsor, probably down to about 18. And here we go tomorrow. It's 28 degrees, that slim chance of showers, a bit of cloud cover with that. Saturday, 30, and then 31 as we go into Sunday. The heat will be back.
The heat will be back. That humidex, though, it does not feel like it's just all-encompassing, like smack in the face with it, which has been nice.
It is not oppressive. So
not oppressive.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll take that. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, some big meetings in Washington, and Canada talks about how much it's going to spend as part of NATO's defense agreement. That's next. The RCMP has launched a new campaign to raise awareness about what it's calling foreign interference activities committed by China. The Mounties say that there's been a spike in complaints over the last month. CBC's Douglas Cleven has the details.
With boots on the ground, the RCMP is hoping this awareness campaign comes across as a show of support. They want anyone who has been threatened or harassed by the People's Republic of China to feel comfortable coming forward.
It could be anything. It could be someone threatening you if you don't remove a social media post. It could be someone threatening you to go back to China to settle some outstanding debt or issues. Otherwise, they're going to threaten or harm your family over there.
The RCMP says it's been aware for some time that China is exerting influence over people in Canada. In March last year, it revealed that 2 community groups, one in Chinatown and one in Brossard, were under investigation for allegedly hosting secret Chinese government police stations. It accused them of acting as hubs to harass and intimidate members of the Chinese community in Canada. The groups deny the allegations and are suing for damages.
The investigation has had a chilling effect on the community. People prevented themselves from reaching out to get help at our community centers because of the allegations of the RCMP.
But the RCMP says the threats and harassment continue. In the past few weeks alone, it says it's received about half a dozen credible complaints.
It's obviously intolerable for us to let it go.
The campaign also includes this social media video. Community leaders say they encourage anyone who is being harassed by the Chinese government to come forward, but add that it could be an uphill battle.
Chinese community is not a homogenous community. So there are people who do trust the police implicitly. I don't trust the RCMP. They just threw us into the public and say, hey, these are Chinese police stations, and then gave no other information to support their allegations.
The RCMP says that the investigation into these secret Chinese government police stations is ongoing, but can't say if it will lead to criminal charges because sometimes in cases of foreign actor interference, criminal charges just aren't possible. It says that it might have to resort to disruption methods, but adds that they're not at that point yet. Douglas Gallivan, CBC News, Montreal.
Canada expects to reach NATO's defense spending target of 2% of GDP by 2032. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the announcement on the final day of the NATO Leaders Summit in Washington, coming after pressure mounts from allies to boost the military alliance's spending benchmark. CBC's Evan Dyer has the details.
Today in Washington, a 3-way deal between the U.S., Canada, and Finland to build icebreakers. The deal is built around Quebec's Davie Shipbuilding, which owns both the Canadian and Finnish shipyards. The U.S. wants to draw on their expertise to revitalize its own shipbuilding industry at the Bollinger Shipyard in Louisiana. The U.S. has only 2 aging polar icebreakers. Russia has 40, including 5 nuclear-powered ships, and China is building icebreakers too. The so-called Ice Pact could generate a lot of economic activity. The 3 partners hope to build about 80 ships and sell them to NATO and other allies. But Canada has committed to make the ships, not to buy them. So it's not clear it will help Canada to meet the NATO defense spending threshold of 2% of GDP. Today, Prime Minister Trudeau denied that Canada is feeling heat over the failure to meet that 2%.
It actually hasn't been a political problem this year, this week. It has been a conversation that allies have been pleased to hear that we have a plan and a timeline to get to the 2%.
Indeed, U.S. Ambassador David Cohen said the U.S. was pleased and encouraged by Canada's announcements. But powerful Republicans in Washington, who may soon return to power, have been harsher.
It's shocking and unacceptable that some allies, especially some capable ones, have yet to reach the 2% requirement that they agreed to. Canada is among this group.
Meanwhile, other NATO members are calling for the threshold to move higher.
So 2% is certainly a floor, but it's not the ceiling, and we are going to be investing heavily also. We have a trajectory up to 2.6 by 2028.
2% is not going to be enough.
Trudeau says he's always questioned the value of the 2% threshold as a measure of a country's contributions. But Canada did agree to that goal 10 years ago. Today, Trudeau said Canada will get there 8 years from now. But there's not a lot of details on exactly how that will happen. And it looks increasingly likely the goalposts will move before Canada reaches them. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Washington.
The federal opposition leaders addressed the Assembly of First Nations today. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre got mixed reaction in his first in-person appearance at the AFN. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh made his pitch for further reconciliation, and the Liberal government also on hand to unveil a major funding agreement. CBC's Olivia Stevanovic has the details.
For both the Conservative leader and First Nations chiefs, a significant moment.
This is my first meeting with you in person, but I hope it will be the first of many.
A chance for Pierre Poilievre to reset the tone with the Assembly of First Nations, a relationship that's faced challenges.
If reconciliation means anything, it means saying yes to economic opportunities that First Nations are asking for.
Some delegates turned their backs, a silent protest involving veterans, members of the LGBTQ and Two-Spirit community.
I'm trying not to cry right now, but standing up there for all of my Two-Spirit people, that it was just something that I had to do.
In your speech, you did not acknowledge missing murdered women.
Poilievre was also called out for what he didn't say.
I did not hear anything about the climate crisis, climate change issues. There's a hurricane in the town right now from the remnants from Burrell. How can we dismiss climate crisis?
But the message Poilievre came to deliver, one focused on resource and economic development, welcomed by others.
And I'm pretty certain he will form government according to the polls. And we wish him well, and we want to work with him and start building those relationships now to make sure that we get some good things going for First Nations people in this country.
And Poilievre wasn't the only political leader vying for approval.
Economic reconciliation cannot happen unless it means respecting your rights to free, informed, prior consent.
Singh tried to counter the Conservative message. So did the Indigenous Services Minister, who arrived on the last day of AFN meetings for a sudden press conference.
We are pleased to announce that we have secured a commitment from the Government of Canada to provide $47.8 billion in funding over 10 years.
That money aimed at solving one of the biggest outstanding issues between the government and First Nations, child welfare reform. The government hoping the dollar figure will trump any promises Poilievre and Singh try to make. Olivia Stevanovic, CBC News, Montreal.
Customs officials in China got a slithery surprise this week when they intercepted a passenger. Security video shows the traveler entering through a port, and they're using a lane that's meant for people with nothing to declare. But during additional screening, that's right, they found 6 sealed bags with live snakes in his pants. Officials say the alleged smuggler had more than 100 snakes on him. Those bags taped into his pants pockets, 5 different species slithering inside 3 that were not found in China. And if that's not that thing for you that gets you going, we got something else here. A German toddler who's able to make masterpieces. That style and grace right there. Germany's mini Jackson Pollock is 2-year-old Lawrence Schwartz, still in diapers, but making a name for himself in the art world. Those paintings selling on the international market for $10,000 or more. He started painting at a kids club at their hotel, hasn't stopped since. The money, it's being saved for him until he turns 18 years old. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Before we go, we just want to thank Jason Vio. He's our producer for the last year, but he's heading back to the reporting streets, I guess is the best way to say that. We're excited to see what he has for us. Thanks.